Welcome to the show, folks. It is Friday, and if you've made it this far, congratulations. The end of the week. I am your I'm your host, Max Burns. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMaxBurns. Follow us on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media, on Substack at Lincoln Square. And as always, leave your comments during and after the show. I read them all. For the next half hour, we are breaking down the biggest stories in the media, and we're laughing through the tears because it has been another crazy week. My guest will be joining us in just a minute. We have a great show. We have someone you know very well, a real special guest for us, the author of the Red Letter Substack and the host of the Tara Palmeri Show. Tara Palmeri is going to be with us. But for right now, let me know if you can tell me what's wrong with this slide we're going to throw up here. This is from a State Department meeting on Africa earlier this week. Anything jump out to you? Well, for one, all the countries are the wrong shapes. Nigeria there is landlocked when it's actually on the coast. Poor Cote d'Ivoire is pointed to on the wrong side of Africa. As a matter of fact, every single country on this map is mislabeled. Claude did the best it could, but I guess AI is just not a replacement for all those State Department employees that were fired or quit. You're doing a great job, Marco Rubio. So I'll tell you, one of the interesting things here is if Trump doesn't know where these countries are or what they look like, makes them a lot harder for him to bomb. That's going to be a great change for them. So we congratulate what I assume are these countries on the money they've gotten from the Trump administration. We don't actually have any idea. But that, surprisingly enough, is not one of our top stories of the week. What is, though, is that the economy still sucks. The latest report is out on the economy. It's showing growth slowing to just 1.5% annually as inflation and the war in Iran pick up, and they're taking a big bite out of your wallet. I didn't need to tell you that. You've gone shopping, you've bought gas, you know what's going on. That golden age Donald Trump promised, it's not looking too golden right now. This is the third straight month where growth has slowed. This is also the third straight month where we've been promised an end to the Iran war, and it hasn't happened. So good luck there, guys. There is one group that's doing pretty well, though. The rich. Aren't you glad to hear that? Their spending went up over the last month at the same time that most Americans faced higher prices at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and basically everywhere else. So, good news. Still great to be rich, guys. If you know any rich people, tell them they're welcome. For the rest of you, it's not so great. A new poll out shows about 65% of Americans don't agree with the direction the country's going economically, and now 50% of Republican voters say they think Donald Trump has not done enough to get a handle on the economy. Go figure. Now, Donald Trump has famously said that he loves the inflation, which I don't know why he would do that, but that's driving more and more voters against him as the polls continue to show. And it's eating into his base, it's eating into MAGA voters, and it's certainly not helping when he gives speeches like this where he talks about affordability as if it's a myth Democrats created. Let's play this clip from Michigan this week.
You know, they have this term, so here I am. I'm one day in office, and the fake news goes, affordability, affordability. I said, what's affordability? What's that all about?
I believe that's literally true. I believe Donald Trump does not have any idea what affordability is. It's why he keeps asking. But voters certainly seem to. Everything from hamburger meat to medicine to child health care to child care after school has gone up drastically over the past year, and that trend is continuing. Don't worry, because Howard Lutnick and some of Donald Trump's key advisors said, just wait, things will get even better than this. Now, Lutnick said a few months ago, look out for the second quarter of 2026 to be amazing. That's when all the tariffs would finally work, Donald Trump's economy would finally get going, everybody would have jobs. Well, it's the second quarter of 2026, and things are going worse than they were last year, going worse than they were the year before. In fact, the only years that saw year-over-year growth in the economy beyond 1.5% were Joe Biden. The guy everybody said was incompetent and stupid and senile. Democrats, as I've always said, the best way to show voters that Democrats should be in power Just give them a couple years of Republicans. I'll see pretty quick that things get awful fast. Looking here at some comments here. Amy Bear says, grocery store is an old-fashioned term, he said. I say that too. Maybe that's just a Midwestern term. But Amy says, it sucks bad out there, and it certainly does. Nowhere more than in our heavy industry, in manufacturing, the jobs Donald Trump said he was going to save. That actually brings us to the fourth story. We played a clip from this earlier. Donald Trump's big speech in Detroit, actually in Milford. You know what is not going to help his numbers here? That big rally. Because he told struggling auto workers in Milford, Detroit, Michigan, that the U.S. auto industry has been booming and that he has Republicans to thank for that. And that these auto workers ought to vote for Republicans because of how great things are going. Just one problem with that. Trump was at General Motors, the proving ground, where he talked about the auto industry tariffs, how important this was, and all the new tariffs he's going to levy on American taxpayers. Yet this is the same Detroit that's lost 60,000 U.S. auto jobs in the last year because of the tariffs. He's talking at General Motors Proving Ground, a place that's lost 3,000 workers in just the last 6 months. These aren't places that are thriving, folks. And one of the reasons you didn't hear a lot of audio from the crowd in that speech, because the crowd was not thrilled with what Donald Trump was saying. They know people who've lost jobs. They have family members who have lost jobs. The auto industry is in a decline right now for the first time in years, after, of course, Joe Biden's pro-labor policies brought it back. Trump's tariffs have wreaked absolute havoc on the economy, especially in Michigan, especially for automakers. With Ford recently begging the White House to give them relief from tariffs, we had carmaker Stellantis posting a $26.3 billion loss. That's its first since 2021 and the largest loss it's ever recorded. And auto parts industry more broadly across the country is down 3.5% in jobs in just the last year, since 2025. Does any of this look like success to you guys? Does any of this look like something automakers who are pushed out to go see a Trump rally are going to cheer? As if they don't know what's going on? As if they haven't seen Ford closing its EV plants in Kentucky and Tennessee? As if they haven't seen Stellantis and GM reducing sales? As if the Ford F-150, the best-selling truck in America for half a century, hasn't fallen off due to massive declining sales? Have you looked at how much it costs to buy a used car recently? My God, it's more expensive than it's ever been. And that's not just inflation. That's the raw cost of goods from Donald Trump's tariffs, dragging your costs up, making it even harder for you to get a car, to get your family around, to get to work, to get the kids to school. But don't listen to Donald Trump, who says everything is perfect. The auto workers should be thanking the Republican Party for the economy they have. Well, my guess is auto workers have a whole lot to say about how the economy is right now, but it probably isn't thank you. And we're going to hear from them in a huge, huge wave in November, at least if recent polling is any indication. Because those auto workers, they know that they're making less money than they were, and they know that their bosses have said things are looking bleak. But hey, Donald Trump says things are great. What would they know? We have some more comments here I want to get to. John Welch here says, Honda in Ohio reversed their 3 electric vehicle models to go hybrid. $73 billion decision loss. True Honda posting record losses again this year. Tess Tepler says, in California, it's the market. Where I live, it's the grocery store. It's also where I spend more money than anywhere else. That is absolutely true, too. Costs going up everywhere. And now you're not even able to get a car to go to the grocery store. I'm looking at Amy Bear, who says Tess Tepler is right that also the price of groceries has gone up drastically for her. Guys, Donald Trump can say all he wants about this. It doesn't matter if people feel poorer. It doesn't matter if the people he's talking to don't have jobs anymore. Now I think we may have our guest popping in here from sunny Florida. I want to make sure that Tara Palmeri from the Tara Palmeri Show is around. Tara, looking wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for waiting on me. I'm so sorry. I had to run out to an emergency doctor's appointment that ended up running late. And as always, when that goes late, there's always a traffic jam. So as that always happens in fate, but you seem to be carrying the show so well. So thanks for having me, Max. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. We're glad you're here. I mean, doctor's appointments, another thing Americans are finding they can't afford anymore. What do you make of not just Trump's speech in Michigan to these auto workers, but his general message here? He doesn't seem to be giving up on this idea that he can win over Americans on the tariffs.
It's just incredibly out of touch. I mean, this is a man that clearly doesn't go food shopping, right? This is a man who's never really had to balance a checkbook. This isn't a man who's ever had to worry about money, really dating back to when he was a child. So he's kind of missing that gene that I think most people outside of the 1% have experienced, which is fears about security. He doesn't think that that's a real thing. And he doesn't think that, his policies impact people in a real way. I did find it to be interesting how he was talking to the automakers, the auto workers, really, and sort of painting a almost, people use this word a lot, but almost gaslighting them on what it's been like. But I do think if I was standing there, I would have a hard time hearing that. It's like, it's like him telling anyone here, oh, the price of gas, the price of your food, everything has not gone up. So he calls affordability a hoax. And you can see that he really.
And that wasn't even the craziest thing that he said. I mean, we have a clip here I want to play where he's lecturing auto workers on how he's better than their parents are. Let's play that.
The people that count, those people love Trump. Because I've done more for you than your parents, okay? Your parents are good. I'm not going to knock your parents, but I have been better to you than your parents. That I can tell you, and they would agree with me. Wherever they may be, they would agree.
I mean, Tara, is that the message Republicans are going to go into November with?
It's just insane. Like, what is he saying? I'm better than your parents? It's like, what is going on here? It's very, I don't know. It's what I would say just is what everyone else is already thinking, which is it sounds like the ramblings of someone who is delusional in a state of like grand delusions. There's no reality there. He's in another space. He's outside of reality right now. So
certainly looks like he is. I mean, the Republicans who are actually running for re-election are terrified at this kind of behavior. Donald Trump seems to think he's 10 points up and doing great with the American people. But as you've written recently, and I want to jump to this as our third big story of the day, things are not going great for Trump or Republicans. We just saw on Capitol Hill this week, Trump is on the verge of dumping his embattled Attorney General nominee, Todd Blanche, after Senate Republicans basically refused to bring his nomination forward. Blanche, of course, the architect of Trump's plan to give almost $2 billion to the people who attacked cops on January 6th, one of the key players in the Epstein files cover-up. And Todd Blanche is an idiot, no doubt about it, but being an idiot has never really been disqualifying for a Republican being nominated before. Just look at Pete Hegseth. So, Tara, you published a great story about this on the Red Letter. Give us the scoop on your take.
Yeah, I mean, this is really about this weaponization bill. I mean, at least to Tom Tillis and John Cornyn, who are two members of what is being called the YOLO caucus, because they've crossed Trump, they're retiring, they have nothing to lose, but they really pinned their opposition to Todd Blanche on this $2 billion anti-weaponization fund and the fact that Trump and his family they've been granted sweeping immunity when it comes to tax penalties and a case against them. And they said it was a liability for their members, especially their moderate members heading into the midterms. And I agree. Trump does not want to lose this fund. He does not want to lose his sweeping immunity, and he's willing to hold his nominee until the next Congress when, arguably it could be even more difficult to confirm Todd Blanche. Now, the truth is that there are loopholes in which Todd Blanche could be acting attorney general for the entire term.
Yeah.
But, I want to draw attention to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, and that's who I really wrote about in my piece. So I started covering this story back in 2020 when I traveled around the country with Virginia Giuffre, who's one of the most prominent survivors of Epstein. And we, knocked on doors of people who she believed could help corroborate her story of abuse, and it was interesting because so many of those doors remained closed, hang-ups, people turning away, promising to help but never following up with the meeting. Everyone from the chef, the pilot, the houseman. One of the people that we spoke to, though, did end up being a key witness for the prosecution in the case against Ghislaine Maxwell. So I felt like we did do something. But, I watched the survivors on the Hill yesterday trying to talk to Tom Tillis. And he's like, yeah, we'll do that meeting, while he's hitting the elevator door to get away from them, backing away. He doesn't want to talk to these girls. They see John Fetterman. He throws his hands up in the air and he's like, I'm not on the list. And it's just that some of these people, they're the most powerful people in the world, and yet they're turning their backs on some of the most vulnerable. These people have all the power in the world to make sure that Todd Blanche isn't confirmed, to make sure that something actually happens with the Epstein files, that there's true accountability. And they're like, yeah, not me, leave me alone. Yeah, sure, I'll help you, but never following up. They asked for meetings with Cornyn and Tom Tillis. They haven't gotten those meetings yet. They got a meeting with Cornyn's staff because Cornyn's so busy. What is Cornyn so busy doing right now, by the way? He's about to retire in a few months. He can certainly meet with some women who have been through hell and are out here trying to get justice. It's really despicable. And so
It is.
I wrote about this, what they're doing, and how it's a continuation of the work that Virginia and I were doing, trying to get people to bear witness to what they saw and to actually do something about it. It's amazing cowardice, right? Like, it really is. And we're seeing it now in the form of our elected officials, now that the story has become so politicized. But it's a really unfortunate thing to witness. And I felt for the women, but I also understand that doing this is an act of emotion, an act of speaking your truth, of doing something. And it can be re-traumatizing, but it can also be empowering. So, I commend them for making the rounds and knocking on those Senate doors and trying to get something to happen. But fortunately, they're meeting a lot of resistance.
And that's what I think stands out to me in your reporting, because this has really fallen out of the headlines. I mean, for Republicans like Tillis, it seems to be this red line is Donald Trump making himself immune from future IRS investigations. That's indefensible. But no one wants to talk about Jeffrey Epstein anymore, or Todd Blanche's role in this cover-up.
No.
Why do you think it is that Tillis is so hesitant to engage this issue, which honestly, when you look at the scope of Epstein's wrongdoing, is far bigger than Trump's immunity deal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you consider the fact that even the FBI says there are as many as 1,000 victims. How many crimes do you know have 1,000 victims, by the way?
Yeah.
Against children. It's insane. And it was an incredibly long running cover-up, decades long. I was really shocked to see Tom Tillis rubber stamp him after that meeting, saying, I'm so happy that Todd Blanche did something that no other attorney general has done. He met with the survivors, because that was a condition for him to advance him onto the Senate floor out of the Judiciary Committee. But it was a rubber stamping for something that was completely a slap in the face to the survivors. I mean, they said that it was a check the box kind of meeting. Todd Blanche, in fact, told them to go back to square one, to go back to the FBI, said, I had nothing to do with this. Was actually quite combative with them. He was patronizing. He even maintained that there was no evidence. And they're like, what about our sworn depositions? How are those not evidence? That is an on the record, under oath account of what happened. If they are lying, they are subject to being, prosecuted for perjury. Why is their testimony not evidence? And he sort of passed them off to a more junior member of his staff who specializes in sex crimes. He had very little interest. And it was a 90-minute meeting. And it was a meeting in which the survivors left feeling even more certain that he should not be attorney general. And yet he got tweet from Tom Tillis saying, "Good job, buddy, for the photo op."
Graceful. Now, usually at this point, I would ask something like, what should Democrats do to hold Republicans accountable on this? But I think this is a bigger question because it's Democrats and Republicans, regular Americans are disgusted, as poll after poll shows at how the Epstein files have been handled. What should regular Americans be doing to hold the Senate accountable on Todd Blanche?
I mean, I don't know how a man who could sit across from a woman who is a convicted pedophile, sex offender, and do this for 2 hours in a way that would clear her name. And according to the reporting from Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan in their book Regime Change, suggest offering her that interview in exchange for a pardon. I mean, I don't know how they could rubber stamp this man who was clearly former President Trump's personal attorney and considers himself to still be in that role to be the next Attorney General of the United States. I mean, his hands are covered in muck when it comes to the Epstein story.
Yeah.
He's on the side of the president. He's on the side of Ghislaine Maxwell. We still don't know if there was a quid pro quo, and she's got to wait until the end of Trump's term for a pardon in exchange for that interview. Barry Weiss apparently is screen testing correspondence to interview Ghislaine Maxwell, CBS. And we know that Barry Weiss is the editor-in-chief of CBS. She's quite Trump-friendly.
Yeah.
And why does she need to screen test new correspondence to interview Ghislaine Maxwell? She has a whole newsroom full of correspondents who I'm sure could properly cross-examine Ghislaine Maxwell, who already got her version of a softball interview over 2 days that aired. I mean, does she really need another softball interview on primetime TV?
This is something that it really does turn your stomach, and we're going to keep following this. I appreciate the reporting you've done on this as well, and the fact that you've stayed on this story, even as a lot of the mainstream media has lost interest, seemingly, for whatever reason, and we will definitely come back to this. I do want to jump to our next big story, which is that Trump is probably hoping all that chaos in the Senate over Todd Blanche is going to distract from all the chaos abroad. Because this week, the Iran war expanded into Egypt and Saudi Arabia, which, for those of you keeping track, means things are getting even worse. NBC News now reporting that Trump has lost patience with his military advisors, and he's concerned that he's trapped himself in an endless Middle Eastern war. Boy, that sounds familiar. Tara, it seems like Trump and Republicans that are up for re-election are finally realizing that the White House has backed them into a corner. Is there a way out of this for the GOP, or are they stuck with this until Election Day?
Oh, there's no way they're getting out of this before Election Day because Iran doesn't want them to, and they won't. We're dealing with a military dictatorship. There's 1,700 lives is nothing for them. They want to bring Trump to his knees, and they've realized that they haven't so far. $4 on average gas is not bringing President Trump to his knees, especially when he also has a interesting authoritarian-esque way of governing in which, he is unconcerned with the people and their affordability concerns.
Yep.
But clearly they don't believe that they have enacted enough damage. They've just bombed tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. They're making it so that you can't even go through the Suez Canal. They are trying to make it as painful as possible for us right now. And according to NBC's reporting, President Trump is getting extremely frustrated with his advisors over this. He thinks they should have helped him get out of this one. Again, I've said this so many times, but I don't know why he would have taken the advice of Netanyahu, who told him that the Iranian regime was down after that failed coup, the failed uprising. He put an uprising down. What made him think he was so weak then? If anything, he showed that he was quite powerful, that the Ayatollah was able to survive that. And so this whole idea that this would be a war that was over in a day, like the Venezuela, he calls it a war, which I find to be quite interesting, coup in Venezuela.
Yeah,
Kidnapping, the assisted coup, the kidnapping, whatever you want to call it. It's just incredible to me that he thought this was going to be easy. Nothing we have ever done has ever been easy, especially in the Middle East. We are not good at foreign wars. We don't win them. We just don't. I mean, World War II, we assisted in, we were a part of that effort, obviously, but it wasn't on our terrain, right? But we
Yeah.
fought alongside our allies in their countries. We understood the terrain. We understood the topography. You want to fight a war in the Middle East? It's insane. This is the same problem they had in Afghanistan and Iraq. We're fighting against guerrilla warfare, although now guerrilla warfare is just drone, right? It's cheap drones that are somehow able to completely destroy our munitions that are worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. Like a cheap drone can take out our military. If anything, it's why Ukraine has lasted this long, is they've realized that drone warfare is actually quite effective. It is modern day guerrilla warfare. We're coming in basically exposed with our ammunitions and everything that we're doing, and they're able to take us out. It's incredible.
It's amazing what you can achieve when you don't have a plan at all, and your Defense Department is led by a former Fox News anchor.
Yeah,
this clearly will be with us for months to come. We've been following this every week, but I do want to get to our last big story. This one's still developing this morning. It makes my skin crawl. Republican Congressman Max Miller is facing another scandal after his ex-wife, Emily Moreno, who's the daughter of Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno, accused Miller of assaulting her and holding a gun to her head. This isn't the first time Max Miller has faced accusations. He's been accused of violence against Trump Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham. Yeah. He faced a child abuse investigation earlier this year. Democrats are calling for a formal investigation, but Bernie Moreno, Emily Moreno's own father, has not even called for Max Miller to step down from his congressional race. I mean, here's the really, really gross thing. Republicans are not just quiet on this. They're actively defending Miller. Right after saying Graham Plattner was beyond the pale. Here's Jim Jordan earlier this week talking about it.
They're going through. We understand that. These kind of situations always are. But Max is a good member and a colleague, and hopefully he's going to win re-election. But ultimately, in the end, that's up to the voters in his district. But yeah, we were up helping Max just a few weeks ago at a campaign event up in his district in the northern part of our state.
So, I mean, it's just worth noting, I mean, the allegations include that Miller scalded his ex-wife's chest and stomach when he threw hot water at her, that he held a gun to her head, that he pushed her against a wall and hit her in the head, that he fractured their daughter's collarbone and bruised her shoulder, that his 2-year-old daughter reportedly told his ex-wife, quote, "Daddy, Casey, kill you." I want to play for you what you said when you were asked about Graham Plattner, who faced allegations of abuse. Let's watch what you told. I've not heard all this stuff. Well, it was in the New York Times. It was in the New York Times. That's the list of allegations. It's been out there for a while. I've not read it.
Good for Casey.
What do you even say about this, Tara?
Good for Casey. Good for her for turning the screw. Yes, good for her. And that is exactly what good journalism is. It's asking people why the hypocrisy. Exactly. I mean, this is a terrifying story. I feel sad for her that her father, Bernie Moreno, is not standing beside her, that he's choosing politics over his own daughter. I think a lot of families are experiencing that at times right now as our country becomes even more divisive. And Stephanie Grisham certainly felt that way when she was in the White House and she saw people that she thought were her friends and her allies choose Max over her. And it really is sad to see people choosing politics over basic human decency. And you see a lot of women getting sucked up into this and not being protected when they should be. The stories coming out about Max Miller, and he is so indignant the way that he treats reporters or anyone who questions him about it. He exhibits rage when questioned about his rage. Need you ask more questions about this man?
We saw just yesterday that Emily Moreno's filed for a restraining order. But this seems to be now an argument that they can't say she's making it up because that would be implying that she's a Republican who's lying. And they're caught in this sort of weird shadow realm where they just have to pretend as if this isn't happening, even though these court documents are coming out, even though more information is coming out daily. And they just have to pretend that Max Miller isn't accused of holding a gun to his ex-wife's head.
They don't have to, though. They can tell him, resign.
Yeah.
This is not appropriate. This is not becoming of a leader. This is not a good reflection on our party and our supposed family values. This is not Christian-like. I mean, for the Republican Party, which has taken on Christian nationalism as an identity for a long time, but the teachings of Christ would say this is not how you would treat anyone, let alone your spouse and your child. They are standing with him because he worked for Trump for a long time. He's a Trump ally, and Trump sees any attack on a man or any accusations made against a man as somehow, a reflection on what he has been accused of. More than 20 women have accused him of sexual abuse. Yep. Including Ivanka Trump accused him of marital rape. So it's a little too familiar, right? And so they protect their own. And it's a sad time to see that, because I don't think 10 years ago you would have seen this.
Yeah.
Do
you think Miller steps down?
Who knows? I think he'd have to light his wife on fire, honestly, at this point. Well, he already tried to, clearly. I mean,
there's a share of the Republican Party now that would cheer that.
It's sad. It really is. I didn't think the Democratic Party moved fast enough to get to act on Graham Plattner, who was obviously an incredibly problematic character. And a lot of people said to me, well, what about Max Miller? And they're right. They're right to ask that question. It's just that we've become almost conditioned to well, how can the Republican Party stand for anything anymore in that respect? They've already given up that moral high ground a long time ago, right? This is incredibly troubling, though. This is active abuse playing out. And they're not doing anything. Still, though, from a human level, the saddest part to me is her father.
Yeah.
That to me breaks my heart when I hear that.
It's stunning how this MAGA movement and this politics has warped us. We have some comments that says, Amy Bear says, so much moral bankruptcy. Yeah. Tess Tepler says, they can justify anything. They probably say she deserved it. It's terrifying, and we're going to follow this. I hope he drops out, but I think it may be too much to expect dignity and decency from someone accused of something like this. And on that last sad story, we've reached the end of the week. I've been your host, Max Burns. As always, you can follow Lincoln Square on Substack at Lincoln Square, on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media. You can follow me at @TheMaxBurns on Twitter. Let me know what you think of the show. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have the great Tara Palmeri gracing our screen today. Tara, tell the folks at home where they can read and watch more of your stuff.
Thanks so much for asking. You can go to the Red Letter on Substack. Please consider becoming a subscriber. We are a one-woman show over here, independent journalism, no shadowy backers, just working for you, trying to dig into the stories that matter. And YouTube, also, the Tara Palmeri Show. You can watch me there as well. And again, thank you for having me on the show. And thank you to all of you, too, who have kept me here on Substack working. So this is my job.
Our pleasure. You're a fantastic journalist and a huge fan of the Tara Palmeri Show. Everyone should go watch it on YouTube. All right, friends, that is it for us. You can find even more videos on Lincoln Square Media YouTube channel. And to brighten your day a little bit, in memory of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, we leave you with this solemn clip of Donald Trump paying his respects at Graham's funeral this week.
Though Frank's agonizing struggle through life was tragically cut short, I am sure he's looking down from heaven right now.
Change the channel, Marge.
That's our homework.
All right, that's it from us. I'll see you right here next week for another End of the Week. We'll have even more chaos to come.
Thanks. Bye.